They say the world is what we make of it, but sometimes the world has other plans. In the quiet corners of Montana's Bitterroot Mountains, something ancient stirs beneath the earth, a giant skeleton with human features that was never meant to be found. And deep within the Selkirk Mountains of Idaho, cursed shapes drift in and out of the shadows, figures that once were men, but are no longer. Strange things walk among us, some hidden, some watching, and some waiting for someone to find them. Welcome to Weird Encounters, a place where the ordinary fades into shadow and the unexplainable comes alive. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and become part of our ever-growing community of the curious. Now prepare yourself, because what you are about to hear is not for the faint of heart. The world we think we know. A world of familiar places, smiling faces, and neatly ordered facts. But beneath that comfort lies another layer. A shadowy one. Hidden corners of existence where things not meant for human eyes linger. Some secrets are forgotten with time. Others are carefully locked away. But once in a while, someone stumbles where they shouldn't. Like one man who wandered too far into the remote wilderness of Montana and found something terrifying, ancient, and forbidden. It happened late August of last year. My cousin Jason and I had planned this backpacking trip months ahead. We wanted to get far away from everything, off-grid, away from work and stress. We headed deep into the Bitterroot Mountains of western Montana. Not just on any marked trail, we were following some old, barely visible logging roads north of Sula. Roads nearly swallowed by trees, brush, and time. Jason had heard about an abandoned prospector's cabin from a local old-timer at a bait shop. Supposedly, it had been unused since the 1940s. Jason loves these local legends, always hoping to find some coins, relics, or elk sheds. Me, I just liked the idea of getting away. But neither of us were prepared for what we found. We spent the better part of the morning hiking in, navigating fallen trees, switchbacks, washed-out gullies. Around noon, we came across a narrow ravine. It looked like it had recently eroded, exposed roots, loose rock, fresh scars on the earth. My eyes caught something immediately, a patch of off-white sticking out from the dirt. At first, I figured it was a cow skull. That wouldn't be unusual out there. But as I got closer, I froze. This was no cow, no animal I'd ever seen. The skull was enormous. The eye sockets alone were big enough to fit my fist. It was mostly intact, except for the jawbone, which lay nearby. The teeth were flat, blunt, squared off like a human's, but 2 or 3 times larger. The overall shape was vaguely humanoid but elongated, deformed, not ape-like, not human, something between, or something else entirely. Jason came over, and we both just stared. My heart was pounding. Jason whispered it might be some kind of ancient hominid fossil, some undiscovered species. But I kept shaking my head. The bone looked too fresh, not petrified or fossilized. It had the pale, creamy color of something not buried long, maybe a couple decades at most, not thousands or millions of years. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures, close-ups, wide shots, different angles. As we circled it, we noticed something even more disturbing. About 15 feet uphill, the ground had clearly been disturbed. A shallow pit, loose dirt, pieces of tarp partially buried like someone had tried to cover it. And there were boot prints, big, deep boot prints. Not hikers, military. I know military boots. I served 6 years in the National Guard. These weren't civilians. We both suddenly felt it. That awful sense of being somewhere we weren't supposed to be. The woods went dead silent. No birds, no wind. Then we heard it. A distant, low thump. A helicopter. It came in fast and low, jet black, no numbers, no markings. We dove into the brush, trying to stay hidden. but it felt like they already knew exactly where we were. Less than 10 minutes later, a black SUV appeared, somehow maneuvering down that barely passable logging road. The SUV was spotless, like brand new. 4 men stepped out, all in black tactical gear, sunglasses, radios, and earpieces. Everything about them screamed, not local law enforcement. They moved directly to the skull, as if they knew exactly where to go. One man pulled out a strange handheld scanning device, waving it slowly over the skull and dirt. Another meticulously photographed and measured everything, while another spoke rapidly into a satellite phone. From our position, we could barely hear, but we caught some chilling phrases. Specimen intact, anomalous structure, retrieval team en route. And then, no civilian contact confirmed. Proceed with standard extraction protocol. Jason squeezed my arm. We had to leave. Carefully, we backed into the tree line, inching away as quietly as possible. Every snapped twig felt like a gunshot in the silence. We left everything behind, our packs, my phone, even my DSLR camera. I couldn't risk them finding anything that could link us there. I denied everything, said we got lost, never saw anything unusual. He studied me, smiled faintly, then handed me a thick non-disclosure agreement. Told me signing was in my best interest. I refused. His smile dropped. He said, "That would be very unfortunate." Then he left. Jason believes they were private contractors tied to the government. I've read about the old stories, giant skeletons found throughout North America in the 1800s, mysteriously vanishing after supposedly being collected by the Smithsonian. Native American tribes tell of enormous beings that once roamed these lands, powerful and violent. Maybe they weren't just stories. Was this a government cover-up? A living giant species? A genetic experiment gone wrong? Or something even darker? I don't know. But the speed and precision of their operation tells me this wasn't their first time. Even months later, I still feel like I'm being watched. Cars that follow a little too long. Strange silent calls. Once, a black SUV idled across the street for nearly half an hour before driving off. That's why I'm writing to you through a burner account. I guess some things are buried for a reason. There are places where the woods feel ancient, heavier, where even time itself seems to slow, as though it too dares not wander too far. And sometimes, those who trespass into these forgotten places stumble upon things that defy explanation, things that should not exist, things that watch from the darkness, like what happened deep in the mountains of northern Idaho, far beyond the reach of town lights, hidden within the silent, suffocating grip of the forest. In early October of last year, I went camping alone in the Stalked Mountains, up in northern Idaho, not far from Priest Lake. My dad used to bring me up there as a kid. We'd hunt, fish, and camp for days, sometimes a full week. That part of Idaho is beautiful but remote. Dense forests, steep ridges, endless wilderness where you might not see another soul for days. It was exactly what I needed. Peace, solitude, a break from work and life. Those woods always felt like home. I planned a 4-day solo trip, heading off the regular trails. I hiked about 10 miles in, following old logging roads that are nearly erased by decades of growth. I was trying to find this little clearing by a creek where my dad and I camped years ago. I remembered catching rainbow trout there as a kid. The air smelled like pine and damp moss, with autumn chill setting in. That mountain quiet presses on you. Not silence exactly, more like the absence of movement, as if the whole forest is holding its breath. Late afternoon on the second day, I stumbled across a narrow ravine I didn't remember. The rocks were loose, freshly exposed, like a recent washout had carved it. At the far end, partially hidden under tangled branches and deadfall, was a small cave entrance. You'd miss it if you weren't looking directly at it. The opening was about 4 feet high and 3 feet wide, sloping into total darkness. I stood there for a while, debating whether to even approach. My curiosity got the better of me. I crouched down and stepped a few feet in, just far enough to feel the cool, stale air flowing from deeper inside. The air smelled like damp stone mixed with something heavier, like decaying leaves but more bitter, more like something rotting over a very long time. I've smelled dead animals before, but this was different. Older. Just as I turned to leave, my flashlight caught something on the walls. Scratches, deep grooves carved into the stone around the entrance. Not random like an animal might make. These were deliberate, strange patterns. Not words or letters, but repeating shapes, symbols, geometric, crude spirals and jagged runes. I ran my hand over one. The edges were unnaturally smooth, as if etched by something sharp and heavy. The hairs on my neck stood up. That's when I heard it. Faint, unmistakable. A soft dragging noise from deeper inside, like something heavy scraping across stone. My chest tightened. My instincts screamed at me to leave. I backed out slowly, never taking my eyes off the darkness. I set up camp further up the ridge, about a quarter-mile away. As night settled in, the forest grew unnaturally silent. No crickets, no wind, just heavy, oppressive stillness. The kind of silence where you hear your heartbeat in your ears. Around midnight, I woke up suddenly. No sound had woken me, just a feeling. That primal sense you're not alone. The fire had burned down to glowing embers. I sat up and immediately noticed movement at the edge of my camp. At first, I thought it was a bear or deer, but then my eyes adjusted. There were 2 of them. Pale, thin figures. Humanoid, but wrong. Limbs too long. Arms hung almost to their knees. Heads narrow and oddly sunken where the nose and mouth should have been. No hair. Just smooth, pale skin that seemed to absorb what little light there was. Their eyes reflected like an animal's. Large, unblinking, wide. They moved unnaturally, jerky, twitching, like puppets with loose strings. They swayed, shifting their weight slowly, but never breaking eye contact. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. My rifle was within reach, but I was paralyzed. The longer I sat frozen, the more aware I became of a low humming sound, almost a vibration, coming from them, or perhaps the cave. Faint, but deep. It made my teeth ache. It was something you felt more than heard. After what felt like an eternity, probably just a few minutes, they began stepping backward into the tree line, never turning, their movements stiff, puppet-like, until they vanished into the darkness. I sat gripping my knife the rest of the night, staring into the trees, too afraid to blink. Every shadow looked like them. Every small sound made my heart race. But there was only silence. At first light, I packed quickly and hiked out. I didn't eat. I didn't stop. Every snapping branch made my skin crawl. But it wasn't over. About 3 miles from my campsite, I found a clearing. A dozen crude wooden markers jutted from the ground. They weren't crosses, just rough stakes with symbols carved into them, like the ones scratched into the cave walls. The ground around them was disturbed, like shallow mounds. Graves, or something like it. Standing there felt wrong, like I was being watched again. I didn't stay. I pushed myself to get out of those woods as fast as possible. When I made it back to Priest River, I stopped at a small gas station. I was shaken. I mentioned seeing strange markings and weird figures while camping, half expecting the guy behind the counter to laugh. But his face changed. He got serious. Said softly, "It's better not to go poking around up there. Some things are old and best left alone." He mentioned what locals call the hollow ones. The old stories say they were people once, cursed, twisted by something inside those mountains generations ago. They disappeared into the caves and never returned the same. He wouldn't say much more, just shook his head and repeated, Some things should stay in the dark. A seasoned hunter, alone in the twilight of Florida's dense Ocala National Forest, an evening hunt that became a haunting encounter. What lurked just beyond the fading light? Let's find out. Hey there, my name is Matt, and I live out near Daytona, but I've hunted in Ocala National Forest my entire life. Hunting's been in my family forever. My grandpa taught my dad, and he taught me. You get the picture. Ocala's always been good hunting ground. Wild hogs, deer, turkeys, you name it. Ocala's got it. But after last weekend, I ain't too sure about going back, and that's the honest truth. I headed out alone around noon, figured I'd do some hog hunting near Lake George. Parked my truck at a familiar trailhead and set out, carrying just enough gear to get me through the evening hunt. Now, my Uncle Rick always said Ocala's got its fair share of stories. Lights in the woods, people going missing, whispers about Bigfoot, typical campfire stuff that you just kinda laugh at. But I never really took any of it seriously. Figured most of it was just old-timers scaring off newcomers. I sure wish I'd paid more attention now. Anyway, everything started off fine. I set up near a creek bed, found good hog tracks, even saw some rooting signs, figured I'd have a good chance. But as dusk started rolling in, things got a little weird. First, it was the birds. Every single one just stopped chirping, completely quiet. My grandpa always told me animals know things people don't, like they sense trouble or danger. I shrugged it off, just thought maybe it was normal evening stuff. About half an hour later, I got that creeping feeling, like something was watching me. I've hunted long enough to trust my instincts. When your gut says move, you move. I packed up quietly and started heading back towards the truck. That's when I noticed it. Rustling sounds, like footsteps shadowing me from deeper in the woods. Figured it was maybe just another hunter or even a black bear, so I kept quiet and picked up the pace. But then, man, it got closer, and I could hear heavy breathing. Not like any animal breathing, but raspy, deep, almost human. I swear it sounded wrong, like something that didn't belong there at all. My heart started pounding pretty hard. Then I caught glimpses of movement in the trees, big, dark shapes darting around quicker than I thought possible. You ever heard of the skunk ape? Florida's version of Bigfoot. People around Ocala talk about it, sometimes laughing, sometimes dead serious. There's even a guy in town, old Jed from the bait shop, swears he saw one once by Juniper Springs, says it smelled awful, like rotten eggs and wet fur. Well, suddenly, that smell hit me. Real strong, real nasty. Made my stomach turn, honestly. I picked up speed, practically jogging, when I heard branches snapping right behind me. I spun around, rifle raised, and saw it, standing just at the edge of my flashlight's reach. Tall, hairy, massive shoulders, reddish-brown fur, and eyes glowing in the dim light. It just stood there staring at me, breathing slow and heavy. I froze, scared like I've never been before. Then it let out this low growl. Not a bear, not a wildcat, something deeper, more sinister. I backed up slowly, never turning my back. Felt like it was daring me to run, daring me to try and escape. When I finally got the nerve to keep moving, I heard it follow, matching my pace exactly. The last 100 yards to my truck felt like a mile. When I finally saw the truck, I sprinted for it, keys shaking in my hand. Jumped in, slammed the door, started the engine, and flicked on the headlights. Right there, standing at the tree line, was the skunk ape. Clear as day in the headlights. Tall, huge, fur-matted, eyes gleaming yellow. It stared at me for a long second, then stepped back and vanished into the dark. I've hunted these woods all my life, seen bears, bobcats, gators, you name it. But this was different. This thing didn't belong. I know now why some folks here refuse to hunt alone in Ocala after dark. Whatever it was, it's still out there, waiting, watching. And so, another strange encounter fades away. a trick of the mind, or something far more unsettling? That's for you to decide. Thank you so much for watching my stories. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your support is what keeps this channel going.